Section 3.6 is all about ratios and proportions. So let's start with our Cornell notes first. So you have your Chapter 3 Cornell notes. Go ahead and flip to the back side. For a ratio is just a comparison between two values. And there are different ways that you can write ratio. You can write 2 over 3. You could write 2 to 3 and use words. Or you can use the colon, 2 to 3, like this. So a comparison between two values. A proportion, which is mostly what the notes are about today, is what you get when you put two ratios that are set equal to each other. For example, A over B equals C over D. Okay? So that's a proportion. How do we determine if an equation is a proportion? So for example, over here should be a line. Over here you've got 2 over 3 equals 12 over 18. There's two ways that you can do it, but what we'll do is actually cross multiply. So step number 1, cross multiply. So you get a number equal to another number. So we do 2 times 18 is 36, and 3 times 12 is 36. You do not write 36 over 36. This is wrong. Do not put 36 over 36. When you cross multiply, it's always a number equal to another number. If they are equal, then it is a proportion. So since 36 is equal to 36, then the answer is yes, it is a proportion. If the answers come out and they're not equal, then it is not a proportion. So solving a proportion, so let's actually go ahead and look at the first two examples. Determine whether the ratios form a proportion. You're simply going to cross multiply. So 40.1 times 10 is going to be 401, and 16.5 times 24.3 would give us 400.95. What you need to be careful of is they have to be exactly equal. These are not exactly equal, so the answer is no. The other thing, when you cross multiply, these two can be flipped around. It doesn't matter. As long as you set them equal to each other, that's all that matters. Number 2, cross multiply. 5 times 52 equals 260. 2.5 times 104 equals 260. So because they come out to be equal, yes, it is a proportion. So when we go to solve each proportion, we're actually going to use the same idea to get us started. So solving a proportion, you start by cross multiplying. So if we had x plus 2 over 10 equals 21 over 30, when we cross multiply this way, 10 times 21, we get 210. When we cross multiply this way, we have to be careful. There's a binomial here. So we have to multiply 30 times x plus 2. So we get 210 equals, distribute, 30x plus 60. And then you'll continue to solve that equation. We can go ahead and do this. Just use the rest of the space. So we subtract 60 from both sides because we undo addition and subtraction first. And that would give us 150 equals 30x. And then divide by 30. And we get x equals 5. Alright, so we cross multiply and then you finish by solving the equation using the steps from the front of the Cornell note sheet if you have any trouble with that. So solve each proportion and show your work. Cross multiply. 4 times 20 is 80 equals 5 times x. For some reason, I get students every year that do this, 80 over 5x. That's wrong. Don't do that. Don't even do 80 over 5. That's also not how I want you to do it. When you cross multiply, you set them equal to each other. Then you use algebra to solve. So we do eventually divide both sides by 5, but you need to make sure that you are doing this the proper way. So 80 divided by 5 is 16. So x such that x equals 16. Number 4, cross multiply, we get 4y equals 5 times 3 is 15. When we divide by 4, we will get a fraction, 15/4. You can leave it as 15 over 4, or 4 goes into 15 3 full times, that'd be 12, and we'd have 3/4 left over. So you have a choice. You can either leave it as 15/4 or 3 3/4, whichever you prefer. Now here is where it's abundantly imperative, extremely important that you follow these steps up here. When you cross multiply, that you set them equal to each other. So we cross multiply this way, 4 times 3, and we get 12. But when you cross multiply this way, you've got to remember to distribute, because what we're really doing is 2 times x minus 5. So we distribute there. 12 equals 2x minus 10. And then we finish solving by undoing addition and subtraction to get 22, and then divide both sides by 2 to get 11. So x such that x equals 11. Okay. Same thing here when you cross multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. Cross multiply this way. 9 times x plus 3. 9 times the quantity, x plus 3. This is called a binomial. There's 2 terms on top, so that's a binomial. It has to be treated differently than if you only have 1 term on the top. So we distribute 4 equals 9x plus 9 times 3, which is 27. Subtract 27. And you get negative 23 equals 9x. Don't freak out. It's okay. Divide both sides by 9. And we get x such that x equals, you can leave it as negative 23 over 9 if you want. That's okay. Leave it like that, or you can change it to a mixed number if you want. That's totally up to you. So 7 and 8 are done the same way. Don't worry that there's a binomial here and a binomial here. Anytime you have a fraction equal to a fraction, you always just cross multiply. That's it. Okay? So when we cross multiply this way, we get 1 times y minus 5 equals 3 times y minus 3. And you distribute. This, of course, will stay the same because you're just multiplying by 1. This becomes 3y minus 9. So we want to collect all the variables on one side. I'm going to move my smaller variable, so I subtract y from both sides. That drops out and I get negative 5. 3y minus y is 2y minus 9. Then we want to move all the numbers to the other side, so we add 9 to both sides. 9 minus 5 is 4 equals 2y. Running out of room. Divide both sides by 2, and we get y such that y equals 4 divided by 2, which is 2. I want you to try number 8 on your own and bring that to class tomorrow. So do this one on your own. You won't get full credit for your notes if you don't have this one done. Using proportions to solve word problems. Okay? When you're solving a word problem, let's read it. If Steph can shoot 62 goals in 110 minutes, about how many goals can she shoot in 1 hour? The first thing you need to make sure of is that you're using the same units. Okay? So this one's in minutes, this one's in hours, and you need to convert to the same. All right? So what we'll do is we'll set up a proportion. Steph can shoot 62 goals, 62G, in 110 minutes. 110 minutes. Now, this might be better if you write over here goals and minutes. So you're labeling your units. This is extremely important because when you go to set up your second ratio, you need to make sure you're putting the information in the right place. So about how many goals, that's the question. How many goals? That's what we don't know. So where the goals are, we would put an X. How many goals can she shoot in 1 hour? Now this is minutes. How many minutes would 1 hour be? 60 minutes, of course. So the hardest part about these is that you translate them, put them into a proportion, and then solving them is easy. 110 times x is 110x. 60 times 62 is 3,720. Then we want to solve for x, so we divide both sides by 110. And we get x equals 33.8. Now it's a word problem, so we can round it, and then what we need to do is write a sentence. Steph can shoot about 34 goals in 1 hour. So if it starts in words, it needs to end in words. And we said about because we are rounding it up to 34 goals. Okay? So when you're translating, a couple things. Come over to your Cornell note sheet. Be sure to label your units. Be sure to label your units. Because if you put in one problem, let's see, 10 miles over 30 minutes, and then in the second half you put your miles on the bottom, then the whole thing would be wrong. You would need to put your miles up here and your minutes down here. Okay? It's important that they match up. Miles all the way across the top, minutes all the way across the bottom. And it's okay if you flip them upside down, but they need to match across the board. And be sure to label units and line up your units. Oops. Your units. Okay? And then write a sentence. Write a sentence to answer the question. All right, so let's look at these other word problems. The scale map for Crater Lake National Park is 2 inches equals 9 miles. Now usually when they give you a scale, that's your first ratio right there. 2 inches over 9 miles. Okay. The distance between Discovery Point and Phantom Ship Overlook on the map is about 1 3/4 inches. We know that, inches. Where's that go? Top or bottom? Our inches are on the top, so we'll do 1 3/4 here. And if you want to go ahead and change that to 1.75, that will be just fine. What is the actual distance between these two places? That's what we're looking for in miles. The actual miles in distance. And then once we do that, we cross multiply and solve. I want you to finish 10 and write a sentence, and finish 11 and write a sentence. Bring those to class with you tomorrow. We'll go over those first thing in class. All right.